Hello everyone, my name is Alanzo from RZIM Canada, and today we're in our last day for our series, Capture the Wonder. And it is going to be such an incredible time here because I'm joined with Sylvia Woods from Guelph, Ontario. This is going to be a time where we get to really just look at some beautiful art and pick her brain and ask her some really cool questions about her creative process and what these paintings mean and all of those sorts of things. So it's going to be an amazing time here together. So a little bit about Sylvia. She is from Guelph. She loves to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but she loves to isolate these symbols that were found in paintings from as early as the Middle Ages to Victorian age, and really isolate them and create an almost visual catalog or dictionary of these often forgotten images, and really try to present them afresh to people, and within these collections almost make some visual poetry, I think, is one of the ways that you said it. But of course, there's so much more to what you do than that. But that's just as we begin. So as we begin, let me just ask you one question. What is your first memory of creating?
I can remember, I don't know if I was 7 or 8 years old, I was young, and my mom always had craft things all over the house, and there was a little box that intrigued me. It was probably a jewelry box, and I built heaven in this little box, and it was so special to me. I remember reading through Revelations or asking my mom questions. There was a little sparkly, glittery street of gold. There was little fluffy bits of cloud. It was a very, symbolic way of looking at heaven, but as a little girl this was, and then you lifted the lid and I had little Kleenex angels hanging from strings down into this box, and I remember just that feeling of trying to capture something and contain it, this piece of beauty, something that I was trying to experience at that age. What is it to create? What does it look like to take this idea and make something of it? So yeah, from a very young age, I was always keen on creating and building art.
Would you say that that's when you first thought, hey, I want to be an artist when I grew up?
Yeah, I don't know. I think as young people, I think we all have a little bit of that. We're born with this desire to make and draw and paint. It sometimes moves into other realms in other ways, but I can't remember not wanting to create, and particularly visual work. Yeah.
And when you were making those things as a little girl or now as a professional artist, what is it about capturing that beauty, about creating that art that moves you, connects to you, inspires you?
Yeah, I think looking at other people's art certainly, and then doing what I do with my own. It's that moment that you can have where you can hold something. Everything's very transient, and time moves and life moves, but you can grab a hold of something and make it larger and go back to it. And it captures a moment. I think that's partly what it is. And I walk through galleries and my fingers itch. My family won't walk with me because I'm running ahead to see it all, so then I can go back and explore everything a little more in depth. But I've got to know what's there. Yeah. I've got to know what's the totality of this, and then hone in on those moments that you see, that you capture, that speak to your own heart. Because I think we all connect with different things, visually and musically, in dance and all. But we all connect. We all connect with creativity and beauty.
And really, I want to focus in on symbolism, because symbolism is so important in your work. Like I had mentioned at the beginning, or alluded to at the beginning, your artistic statement says that you're an artist who aspires to create this visual dictionary or catalog of this often forgotten symbols, and grouping them together to make some sort of visual poetry for us to see and engage with. For everyone that's watching, what is it about these symbols that so fascinates you?
Yeah, symbols are something that I think hearken to that desire for mystery, desire to explore that's within all of us. When I look at the Creator, God, I think symbolism is one of his primary languages. When you think about Christ speaking, he spoke in parables, and they were audible symbols where, a mustard seed isn't a mustard seed anymore, and a coin isn't a coin anymore. So it's a way of forcing you to take something simple and pull out a richer meaning or a fuller meaning. Sometimes it has to do with the way the object was created that might suggest a symbolic meaning that people understand readily. Sometimes it has to do with the cultural significance of the day, the value of a piece of the day. But symbols are something we live with, and I think it's a language all its own. And now that we're so literate as a culture, we often use words in ways and bypass, even though we are very visual, clearly, as people, attracted to visual things. But to listen to a symbol that something visual is saying takes work, and it takes time, and it takes a certain amount of meditation. And so when I paint these pieces, I like to make them larger than life if possible, or certainly in a way that isolates them so that you can say, what's going on here? What's being said? What is this really about? And yes, certain things are just beautiful. They also, very often, you can dig deeper and you can pull back more layers. So I think that's where symbolism is important to me. I think it's, as I say, I think it's God's primary language to us. He talks about creation that way and how it speaks about him and who he is. And Jesus is the image of the invisible God, right? He's a symbol in a sense of this is what God looks like in the flesh. And so I think it's just that was the draw for me.
I think it also seems to be a welcomed remedy or antidote to the hurriedness of our contemporary Western sort of culture and ways of life, where it forces us to slow down a little bit, think, and take our time as we just engage with it. So I think what you're doing is very welcomed to the fast-pacedness of our lives right now. And I want to continue going down this route. Your paintings, Sylvia, are so stunning. They're so beautiful. They've touched me. I've told my wife and everybody that will listen, I've told about your paintings because I absolutely adore them. Can you tell us the name of this piece and maybe just the two behind us? And just tell us the names of these pieces.
Okay, well, it first starts with the scientific name for orchid, but then that's just for these two pieces in particular. But this one is called Yellow Submarine, which is actually the common name for this type of orchid, and a symbolic meaning for a yellow orchid, and often for yellow flowers, is friendship, which is, to me, I would imagine it has to do with the beauty of yellow, just sort of the cheerfulness of it, the connectivity of it. The piece behind is another orchid. It's called a Flamingo Orchid, and its name is Flamingo. And then the pink orchid is about grace, which is clearly just such a rich word that you can go deeper and deeper into that. And then the piece that's behind you is a trembling aspen catkin, and its symbolic meaning is lamentations.
Wow. We find ourselves at the end of our RZIM Advent series called Capture the Wonder, which I had mentioned earlier, which is all about anticipation, refocusing our attention, and thinking of the coming of Jesus. It seems to me that good art like these that we're looking at right now, it seems to me that good art can achieve similar sort of aims. Especially in regard to our attention and deep thought. I look at these and I want to think deeply about them. Sam Gillian, a great American painter, said earlier this year that art calls our attention. It gets us to stand still, even if it puzzles you, to cause you to think deeply about it. So my question for you is, why did you select these paintings for Advent, to display for us on Advent? And what are you hoping that the audience is going to be thinking about as they look at them?
Yeah, so Advent for me is a time of waiting, and a time of anticipation, anticipation of joy, anticipation of a better way, of the coming of the Messiah initially, and still for us today. It's a reminder that, beauty is coming forth. It's here a little bit now. We see glimpses of it, but it hasn't come to its fullness yet. So these pieces, again, are all, they're not something, you can certainly look at them and see the colors, see the form and walk away, or you can look at them and see the titles and say, why is that friendship? Why, you or I could both look and say, why is a yellow orchid a symbol of friendship? What is this saying? And then just digging into pulling back the layers of meaning as well. So I think, again, Advent is about sitting and waiting and being in that place of just, it hasn't happened yet. It's not here quite yet. And I think that any art form that you're taking the time to experience and look at, that certainly speaks to that waiting process and allowing it to be revealed and more to be revealed through that. So,
and as you're painting these, not only are you trying to isolate these symbols and communicate meaning and engage with us deeply, but is there also at the same time things happening in real life that are inspiring you? So when I look at this friendship, for example, was there something that was going on in your life that helped motivate you to say, out of all of the symbols, I'm going to paint this one today?
Mm-hmm. Well, these orchid pieces came out of a trip I took with my daughter to New York City about a year and a half ago. They had a beautiful orchid show in Brooklyn, and it was a time just before she was launched into her own life, her own grown womanhood, and it was a moment where the lines between mothering and friendship began to blend in a different way. We went as friends. I certainly was there as her mother, but this piece in particular was coming out of that experience, that this is something we shared and celebrated, and I look forward to growing in that friendship in a new and different way. So that one particularly is personal in a different way.
It's good, and this is one of my favorite pieces. It's so brilliant and warm and welcoming as I look at it. I'd like to continue down this train of thought, if that's okay with you, Sylvia, about Advent, because Advent is likewise a commemorative time of when the invisible became visible, when God came through the person of Jesus. Can you describe for us the role that God has played in your life and your creative work?
Yes, as a natural, growing up, I certainly there was always this art, but there's a very strong side to me that is more scientist, more research-based. My creativity comes through digging, through research. And I think I was fortunate to grow up in a Christian home. I understood my faith, and I certainly saw it as there were boundaries to life that were provided by my faith. And I think moving into adulthood and owning that faith for my own, I started to see it move from this set of the way we do things into who I am, who Christ has made me, and what I am becoming through my relationship with Him. And there's a freedom in that is scary in ways and very rich in others. So I think that when I think about how my creativity has been affected and how my life has been affected by Christ, it's this idea of, it's not about what we do and don't do. It's who we are, it's how we live. And there's so much grace, speaking to the meaning of this painting here. If we make a mistake, we're covered by grace. There's this beautiful fluidity to the way we move into our relationship with Christ. And friendship as well. So in friendship, we don't set a bunch of rules and say, when you break these, it's over. we give each other grace. They have to work together. We know as humans, we're making mistakes. We're moving forward in different ways through those. But yeah, my relationship with Christ has certainly given me a freedom to allow us to be human and to allow God to take those places where we've been in error and where we've had pain and pull something beautiful out of those places. Yeah. And so I think that's been sort of where my journey has been taking me more lately, is into this place of transformation.
This speaks exactly into the next question that I have for you. It was the late John Baldessari, the influential conceptualist from California, and he said that art meets a nutritional need for the public when he was asked about its role in society. It seems to me, Sylvia, that your work is certainly meeting people's need for the beautiful. But do you also see your work as meeting a spiritual need in people? Let's say especially in Advent and in Christmas.
Yes, well, I think those two things actually work hand in hand. I think beauty meets a spiritual need in people. I think it's a place where we often start to see God for the first time. When Scripture talks about creation revealing the glories of God, it's a way, whether we've heard it in words, whether we've been handed the Scripture or not, when we walk around, we see who God is. He gives us some of His secrets. And so I think beauty is a path towards spiritual truth that God gives us freely. Whether it's, He talks about the sparrows. And if you think of it, it's a little brown bird, they're a dime a dozen. But if you sit and start digging closely in the way some of the paintings are, where you get in really, really close and you look at a feather and a hollow wing and you think, why? Like, why so intricate?
Intricate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Why did God take the time? And I think it's a conversation about beauty showing us these things matter. We matter. It all matters. And I think it leads us to God in that way. So yeah, do my paintings speak spiritually as well as to beautiful? I think that's the stepping stone. I think when we show God's creativity through things that we go on to create, we're beginning to expose who God is, and hopefully draw people to ask the questions, what lies behind this beauty and where is this coming from? And
well, I know just, you guys may not know this because we were talking off camera, but some of your work has just moved me to tears, especially Lamentations, where God can speak through and connect deeply through the contemplation of the beautiful and just allowing you to pause and reflect and just giving God space to connect with you through something that's beautiful. And that for me is something so sacred and valuable and timely because, well, it's been a tough year for so many people. I have one last question for you before we close, which is this, and the artists out there that are watching, just this is for you. I was thinking about you when we came up with this question, but what's the best piece of advice, Sylvia, that someone's given you that you would like to pass along to other creatives?
I think it crosses the line. First of all, I see us all as creatives, whether we're moving in a visual artist form or whether we're creating a family or creating a home or creating a career. So I think we all create. It's whether it's specifically art, but I think the best piece of advice, as a young mother, I remember putting my kids to bed one night and sitting down in a mess of a home and saying to my husband, I can't live like this. This is a mess. And he just quietly said to me, yes, it's messy and it's imperfect, but it's incredibly beautiful. And I thought, wow, I have a tendency, we want to control, we want perfection, we want it to all be right. And yet, this world is there's beautiful things. I mean, there was crayons on the floor, which meant somebody was coloring. So I think the piece of advice is look around for those beautiful things, because they're there, even in the middle of the imperfection, even in the middle of the mess, and they point us to God and they point us to who He is. And I think our focus is important.
What a great last comment. Looking for the beautiful, even within the mess, because it's there and it's going to point us back to Jesus. Absolutely stunning. I think of the words of Caravaggio, who said, "I am always learning." And I felt like I've learned so much from you today, Sylvia, and I hope you all did as well. Where can people find your work? Because it's absolutely beautiful. Where can they find it?
Thank you. Yeah, well, if you Google Sylvia Woods artist, my Wix site will come up. And you can also find my work through the Imago Arts Association. John Franklin has curated the space here at your offices, and you can see my work and other artists as well who are working currently, and I think those are two good places to start.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We're truly honored to be able to have you with us here in the office and just to be talking about art for the past 25 minutes or so. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone as well for tuning in. I hope this was a time of real encouragement, as well as to get you thinking deeper about beauty, about art, and about orchids and lamentations and catkins and so on. So I hope you enjoyed it. God bless you this Christmas season. Thank you for journeying with us through our series, Capture the Wonder. And we look forward to seeing you all very soon. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hello, everyone. And I hope that you enjoyed watching that interview that I got to be a part of with Sylvia Woods. Now, I just want to take a few moments to isolate one particular image and just see some of the features and how they speak to us during this Christmas season as we wrap up our series, Capture the Wonder. And just for a few brief moments of unhurriedly strolling through and soaking in this beautiful piece of art here. First, I want you to notice this, that the painting is frameless. Now, frames can serve all sorts of practical utility, anything from protection to displaying, all the way to enhancing the subject and color scheme, while still remaining subordinate to the actual painting itself. However, it can also serve as a symbolic function of marking the boundary between the identifying of the art and reality. And this piece, being frameless, seems to be communicating that the boundaries between us and the painting have been removed. In a deep sense, therefore, it's bidding us to slow down, to widen our perspective, and to come in and see, to really see, to see and to ponder the truths that this piece of art is capturing and communicating. As Sir Simon Schama writes that the power of the greatest art is the power to shake us into revelation and rip us from our default mode of seeing. And this is what this piece of artwork is doing, to see the world from a different perspective that we would have otherwise not been able to consider. It's a beautiful story, and it's telling it to us and inviting us to listen. Next, our eyes fall to the main subject of this painting, which is the catkins. Now, this is a trembling aspen, and these bits right here, those are the actual catkins themselves, and which have been beautifully painted again by Sylvia Woods. And its symbolism is fascinating to contemplate further because it's a species that is commonly found within North America, all the way to the top in the state of Alaska, all the way down to Mexico. And so it stands in stark contrast to some of the more rare species of trees within our world. So building on the invitation that the frameless painting extends to its viewers is its message that you and I are intended to see ourselves here. There's this commonality present, and it's saying that there's room enough for us all to find ourselves in the story that it seeks to tell. And it's a story, as the title suggests, lamentations. It's a story of lamentation. And lamentation literally means a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. In other words, this is capturing a crucial aspect of suffering. And just look at the trembling aspen in this painting on the canvas, and it's symbolically reflecting suffering, our suffering. And to look here at the catkins themselves, there's motion that's captured here. It's almost like the painting is alive. The catkins are being tossed as if in a tempest, a storm. There's instability, there's uncertainty, and a building tension that's taking place within its narrative. It is as if one more gust will mark its end, that it is barely holding on. And with this perspective at the fore, we suddenly identify ourselves within its story. 2020 has indelibly marked us. And it's left this indelible mark of suffering and lamentation on all of our lives. And as much as Christmas may be a snowy season of joy for some, it is an icy reminder of sorrow to others. And we find ourselves, like the trembling aspen's catkins, barely holding on. However, as significant as suffering is as a chapter of the story, it's not the final chapter of the story. For there is something unique to this painting that's not found in any other painting within this collection. Subtly, softly, faintly, amidst the blackness, light is piercing through and descending. You see, the narrative arc of the biblical story likewise begins with human beings, a tree, and tragedy. And as suffering and chaos spreads throughout the story of God and humanity, a metaphorical winter ensues, which is the setting of this trembling aspen. And the truth resounding here is that as winter lasts for a season, so too does that state remain in the biblical story until the glimmer of hope begins to shine as a light, as it does softly here. That hope is told through Israel's prophets and poets. One of them being Isaiah. He writes this, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace." In other words, God himself will come, and he will come to rescue. And that is what's being celebrated on Christmas. The culmination of the biblical hope, the coming of Jesus Christ, God enfleshed. That is, light descending and piercing through. And notice the beginning effects on the trembling aspen itself. The catkins are some of the first signs that the dead of winter is almost done and the new life and warmth of summer is right around the corner. The Christmas story, like this painting, is capturing not only the reality of human suffering, therefore, but also the hope and new life that God brings as he breaks through the darkness of our world. As I close, I made a point to illuminate the framelessness of the painting. And it's because of this removed wooden barrier that we are invited into the story and we can enjoy full access to the painting itself. In the heart of the biblical story, it's another set of wood pieces. Not a wooden frame to nail a painting up with, but wood to nail God to. You are to give him the name Jesus because he will save his people from their sins. And this is the reason why Christmas is so utterly significant and sacred. For it is this Jesus, born on Christmas Day, who suffering suffuses our scars with meaning, and he absorbs the barrier of our sin into himself so that we might have full access to God. My last thought for you is this. Now, as we look again at our main subject, the trembling aspen, and the catkins that are struggling to hold on. During our times of lamentations and suffering this Christmas season, we can deeply resonate with the truth of the symbolism here. But as I reflected even more about the reality of the full access to God because of Jesus, an epiphany had struck me as I was looking at this painting, that the branches are in the shape of a hand. The thumb up here, and index, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. So it seems, to me at least, that this painting is not so much a commentary on the strength of the catkin to hold onto the branch, but rather this is capturing the strength of the branch, of holding onto it. Though winds of instability and uncertainty come, the catkin will not fall because of the relationship to something outside itself. This Christmas and this painting is a reminder of that reality. It is not about your strength to hold the pieces of your life together, but God's strength to hold on to you. Merry Christmas. God bless you, and we are praying for you, all of us here at Ars at AM. I hope this was an encouragement to you, and we'll see you soon.